Okay, I finally watched Wolf Children, and yeah, I see what you are all saying. When I brought up Ghibli mothers a while back, a few of you mentioned Hana. And once I actually sat down with the movie, that reaction made complete sense. Wolf Children settles into its story with a kind of patience that immediately stood out to me. It moves at a human pace. Scenes breathe. Moments linger just long enough for you to feel them without being pushed toward any particular reaction. You spend time with Hannah as she adjusts to a life that keeps shifting shape, and the movie stays close to the everyday parts of that process. There's an early stretch where nothing dramatic happens on the surface, yet everything underneath keeps changing. New routines form, small choices start stacking up. You can feel how each adjustment quietly leads into the next one, and the film trusts you to notice that on your own. And that tone pulled me in fast. It reminded me of what life feels like when you're carrying something fragile throughout the day. You still move forward, you do what needs doing, your awareness sharpens, and you start thinking a few steps ahead. You start to move with a little more care, even when no one else can see why. Once Yuki and Ame start growing into themselves, that feeling deepens. Early on, they feel close, almost mirrored. Over time, their paths slowly open in different directions. With Yuki, I kept getting this sense that she wants to connect, to be seen, or to understand how she fits into the world around her. She learns through interaction, through awkward moments, and through trial and error. You can feel how much effort she's putting into shaping herself in a social space. Ame feels quieter, he watches more, he listens. There's a comfort in solitude that shows up again and again, especially once the forest becomes part of his world. His growth happens gradually, almost invisibly at first, until you suddenly realize how far he's gone. Watching them diverge feels natural, and Hannah sits right in the middle of that change. What stayed with me about her as a mother is how she responds to that difference. She keeps adjusting the space around her kids rather than steering them back toward each other. She stays grounded. She pays attention. She trusts that each step they take is part of something real, even when one of those paths starts stretching beyond her reach. There's a moment later on during the storm where that trust carries real weight. Her voice gets lost in the rain, and the distance between her and Ame feels heavier than anything the movie has shown up to that point. The scene doesn't rush past it. You're allowed to sit there with her. By the end, the story leaves everyone in motion. Yuki finds a way to stay connected to the human world. Ame moves into a quieter life shaped by different rules. Hannah remains where she is, still caring, steady, and changed. After watching, I looked into the film's background and a lot clicked into place. Many of the people behind Wolf Children came out of the same creative space as Ghibli. You can feel that shared care for everyday life, that trust in quiet storytelling, or that respect for the audience to meet the story halfway. So when Hannah came up in conversations about Ghibli mothers, a connection definitely made sense. This story understands care as something lived, something adjusted to over time, something that changes shape as the people you love grow. That's what I want to spend time with here. Hannah, Yuki, Ame, and why Wolf Children carries itself with so much calm while handling something this emotionally complex. There's a quiet honesty to how Hannah parents that really stayed with me. She doesn't arrive with answers. She's figuring things out in real time, the same way her kids are. You see it early on when they're still small, when everything feels fragile and temporary, like one wrong move could send the whole thing tipping over. She's tired, overwhelmed, learning systems she never planned to learn. And yet there's this steadiness to how she shows up. One of the first moments that really locked this in for me is when she's dealing with the kids transforming for the first time.
Look, I'm sorry, but Yuki.
Wolves are people. We didn't know how to be either yet. And us switching back and forth between the two didn't make figuring it out any easier.
There's panic there, sure, but it passes quickly. What replaces it feels more important. Attention, presence, She watches them closely, she adapts the space, and she adjusts the rules of the house to fit who they are, instead of forcing them to fit the house. And that pattern keeps repeating. When they move to the countryside, it doesn't feel like a romantic reset. It feels like a practical decision made by someone trying to widen the margins just enough so everyone can breathe. The house is rough, the work is constant, the neighbors are skeptical, and Hana just keeps showing up anyway. Learning how to grow food, learning how to ask for help, or how to accept that she's going to get some things wrong. There's a scene where she collapses in exhaustion after working the fields, and it says more about her than any speech ever could. This is someone running on commitment rather than confidence. She doesn't seem certain that things will turn out okay. She just keeps choosing to stay present, and that presence looks different depending on which child she's responding to. With Yuki, Hana gives room. When Yuki wants to engage with the world, Hana lets that curiosity lead, even when it introduces risk, whether it's school, friends, social rules. You can feel the tension there, especially when secrecy enters the picture. Yet Hana resists the urge to clamp down. She talks, she listens, but she also keeps the door open. With Ame, her posture shifts. She watches more closely. She gives space in a different direction. When he starts spending more time alone, more time listening to the forest, she senses that pulling him back would do more harm than good. So she adjusts again. Fewer questions, less interference, but more trust. What really defines Hana's parenting, at least to me, is how rarely she centers her own comfort. Her choices revolve around what helps her kids grow into themselves. Even when that growth leads somewhere unfamiliar, she absorbs uncertainty so they don't have to carry it too early. And the storm scene seems to bring this all into focus.
雨雨行ってしまうのだって私まだあなたに何もしてあげてないまだ何もなのに待って雨
You can feel her fear, her helplessness, her realization that one of her children is stepping into a world she cannot protect him from anymore. The rain swallows her voice, the landscape feels different, and still, she keeps moving. That moment lands hard. Then the movie does something really interesting. It doesn't turn that pain into a lesson. It doesn't resolve it with reassurance. It just lets it sit there as part of loving someone who is growing beyond you. And by the end, Hana hasn't lost her role as a mother. It's changed shape. She's still tending the land, holding space, and living with the choices she made, and the people those choices helped create.
The glittering spider webs, even the sky itself. In a single night, the whole world had been reborn. To Mom, it had been. The next year, I moved away from home to live in the dorms at the junior high school. Before I left, she reminisced about the 12 years she spent raising us. She said the time had passed as though in a dream, or a fairy tale. She smiled as she said it, her gaze fixed at the peak of a distant mountaintop. And in that moment, I knew I could go. She was fine. We all were. Even now, she lives in that old house in the countryside, alone, but content.
That's why she fits so naturally alongside the mothers we've talked about before. She builds an environment, trusts growth, and accepts distance as part of love, rather than a failure of it. And once you really see that in Hana, the kids start to make even more sense. Yuki feels like motion from the very beginning. Even when she's little, there's this sense that she wants to press outward, to touch the world and see how it reacts. She laughs loudly, she throws herself into things. She gets embarrassed easily and then tries again anyway. Watching her, I kept thinking about how much energy it takes to want connection as badly as she does. Once school enters the picture, that energy sharpens. You can feel how badly she wants to be a part of that space. Sitting in a classroom, learning the rules, figuring out how to read a room. There's genuine excitement there, but there's also this quiet strain, like she's constantly checking herself, wondering how much of who she is can safely show. There's a moment where she loses control in class, and it's painful in a very specific way.
Hey, let me ask you. Do you smell that?
Smell what? What is it?
Guess I just imagined it. Which one do I take? Yeah, this one! Aw, never mind!
Yuki, wanna play? Sohei's no good at Old Maid, but he's really funny.
Gotta give this back.
What's up with her? So Yuki, what's up? Hey, wait up! Yuki, stop being dumb. Just tell me the truth.
About what?
Did I, make you mad or something? And you hate me because I'm the new kid? Is that it?
Look, it's nothing, okay?
Then why are you running away from me?
I'm not running away. Oh, girl, all the way up.
Hey! Wait up!
Little girl, all the way up. Come here, little girl, all the way.
Mom,
I mean it, okay?
what's wrong with you?
Let go of me!
What gets me is how the movie doesn't frame this as failure. It feels more like information. Yuki learns something about herself and about the world at the same time. From there, you can see her start to calibrate. She pays attention to tone, posture, when to speak and when to hold back. That doesn't feel like erasure. It feels like adaptation. She's learning how to exist among people without losing herself entirely. And that's such a specific kind of growth, especially for someone who feels everything as intensely as she does. Her relationship with Hana shifts during this stretch too. Hana senses it, Yuki senses it, and instead of collapsing into confrontation, the movie lets their relationship stretch a little. Conversations happen quietly. Trust gets tested in small ways, rather than explosive ones. You can feel Hana choosing restraint, giving Yuki space to figure out things on her own terms. What really stayed with me is how Yuki's story treats belonging as something learned or practiced. It's awkward, uneven, and involves mistakes. She wants connection badly enough to keep trying even when it hurts, and that persistence feels deeply human. By the time she's older, there's a calm confidence to her that feels earned. She hasn't solved herself. She's found a way to stand in the world without constantly bracing for impact. She stays close to people. She builds a life that makes sense for her. And when you hold that next to Ame's path, the contrast becomes even clearer. Ame feels quieter right from the start, and the movie never rushes him. He spends a lot of time watching. You see it in how he lingers at the edge of things, how he seems more interested in patterns than reactions. While Yuki pushes outward and learns through contact, Ame learns through stillness, through waiting, and paying attention long enough for something to reveal itself. Once the forest enters his life, everything shifts. There's this sense that the woods speak a language he already understands, He doesn't approach it with curiosity the way a visitor would. He moves through it like someone recognizing something familiar. No big declaration, or moment where he announces who he's becoming. It just happens. What I found really striking is how the film frames that pull. Ame isn't running away from people. He's moving toward alignment, toward a pace that matches how he experiences the world. The more time he spends with nature, the more you can feel him settling into himself. His confidence grows quietly, his movements sharpen, and his decisions feel instinctive rather than reactive. There's a scene where Hana watches him from a distance, and you can feel the gap forming. She sees the change. She understands it on some level, and she also understands that stepping in would break something important. So she stays back. She watches and lets him go where he's going. That choice carries so much weight. Ame's growth doesn't look reassuring from the outside. It involves solitude, danger, and a world Hana can't enter. The film never smooths that over. It lets the discomfort sit there. You're allowed to worry. You're allowed to feel the distance growing. And when you zoom back out, what Hana gives them becomes clearer. She didn't shape them into versions of herself. She built a world that could hold difference. She stayed present long enough for each of them to discover what kind of life felt true. That's a rare thing to see portrayed with such patience. And it's also what ties this story back to Ghibli so cleanly. Children growing in different directions. Adults creating environments rather than destinies. And trust operating quietly in the background, holding everything together. Which brings me to where I want to end this. Wolf Children stays with people for a reason. It understands that love changes shape over time. That care sometimes means closeness. And sometimes it means distance. And that both can come from the same place. That's why I'm grateful so many of you nudged me toward this one. I see it now. And I'm really glad I took the time to sit with it.